Good morning.
It is.
I love you all so much.
That is clear to us.
I'm so glad to be here. I have been working on, let me start again. Nothing is more important to me than that I feel good. Nothing is more important than that I feel good. And I'm always reaching for that. And I have been working on my body and my relationship with food for a long time. And it's the most important thing to me is feeling good about it. So I've let go of a lot of stuff. I brought myself into balance with my relationship basically with food. I know all food is good. And now I'm bringing myself into a good relationship with eating. And if I could just not eat and just ignore it for a while and just work on bringing myself into harmony, it would be easier. But so many times a day, I have to cook for my family, I have to go shopping, I have to feed myself, and I come up against the vibration right there. And it's very hard to reach for the good feelings at that point.
Well, first we want to say to you that this falls clearly into the category of being an issue that you're wanting to deal with. And this is one of the issues that we are almost in agreement that it is worth taking the bull by the horns and dealing with because, as you said, it's something that comes up so often. It's a big part of your life experience. Right. But what it all comes down to is how I feel about food, how I feel about my body relationship with food, and much of that started in your vibration long ago.
Yes, I know.
So what happens is when something has started so long ago and you've practiced the feeling so much that it has just become sort of an ambient part of you. In other words, it's sort of like your personality. It's sort of like your posture. In other words, you sort of have been bringing it with you and practicing it. And so then to say, well, this is something that now I'm going to change the way I offer vibration about, we say, yes, you can do that. But a faster way and an easier way is whenever it isn't a moment when you're shopping, or whenever it isn't a moment when you're cooking, or whenever it isn't a moment when you're eating or making sure that someone else eats, then in those moments, let's not make it be the issue. Let's find other things that are less resistant in nature that you can give your attention to. I know what to do, and I make good choices, and I'm in control of my life, and things work out well for me, and my life overall is doing extremely well, and I'm always reaching for more balance, and I'm doing extremely well, and I'm wise, I make good choices, and my body knows what to do, and no matter what choices I make, I'm not very far from perfect balance, and everything's coming into alignment for me, and I think I will eat this right now. And the most important thing that we're talking about relative to this path of least resistance is we want you to give yourself the benefit of the doubt and ease your stress and ease your worry and ease your disappointment to the place where you can actually eat something that you formerly had beat up on yourself when you were eating it and actually enjoy it.
Right.
Jerry and Esther sat in a restaurant yesterday and watched two very large women come in. In fact, they were so large that one of them asked for a special chair to sit on. And then as she sat to eat, she ordered things that Esther thought were totally wrong choices. And then Esther thought, this is none of my business, but. And then Esther decided that she would just observe them and see how they were doing. In other words, on the one hand, Esther appreciated the fact that they boldly ordered what they wanted to eat and were offering no apologies about it. And on the other hand, Esther wanted to see if she could get a sense of how they really were feeling about it. And they seemed to do all right with their choices in terms of their own personal beating up on themselves or not. In other words, nothing seemed too apparent until dessert was discussed. And when dessert was discussed, Esther felt the red flags stirring up all over the place as they had then crossed the line of where they thought they should go. And the waitress encouraged the tiramisu, and Esther could feel them perk up to it. And then their guilt sort of seep into the space. And then the waiter said, maybe you'd like to share a piece. And then they said, are you kidding? Share something that good? And so they both received each the biggest piece of tiramisu that Esther has ever seen. And then as Esther watched them, Esther could feel, as a result of that interchange, the enjoyment level had subsided almost completely. They ate it because they were determined to eat it and because a part of them wanted to eat it, but there was no pleasure whatsoever taking place. And that is the thing that we are most wanting to impart. We want you to eat whatever in the world you feel like eating, and it is our promise to you. If you are eating it in joy, you're in alignment, and it will work out fine for you, short-term, long-term.
I know that.
But if there is guilt, if there is disappointment, if there is beating up on me, if there is anxiety, if there is blame, if there is anything else that is mixed in there, then you might as well eat cut glass, because, that's immediately dramatic. But what we are getting at is nothing that you are eating in disharmony can be of value, and nothing that you are eating in harmony can be of not value.
Okay.
Begin to take your own personal polls. We watched millions of people smoking and not receiving detrimental results from smoking because they were not aware of any detrimental results coming from smoking. And once the emphasis was put upon the detrimental results of that, the percentage of people that are having negative response to that action has risen dramatically. Not because the cigarette is the cause, but because the thought about it has caused disharmony, and the guilt and discomfort associated with the action that they cannot stop or think they can't causes an imbalance in their alignment. And that's why we keep saying to you here today that there are no truths that are always true, and there are no truths that are always true and always good for everyone involved. In other words, there are a lot of people that have diseases that you don't want, and that is a truth.
Right.
But it is not a truth that you want to experience. And so finally we're wanting to sort of jolt you into this place where you say, I'm no longer trying to decide what's true or what's not true, and especially based upon somebody else's experience. What I'm working on is how things are lining up with me. How I feel about me. How I feel about me. How you feel is everything. And that's what we would be working on, you see. If you are interacting with someone who on a regular basis makes you feel uncomfortable, then we would find someone else to interact with. We would not hold ourselves in a steady place of discomfort. But we also would not be so quick to assume that it's all about their doing, because most of it is about your response to that. And you can choose responses about everything, but it takes a little bit of practice. You just have to decide that you want to feel good. And so that's why we play this game of path of least resistance. You can take any issue and you can play both sides of it. And if you can lose the temptation to play the side of it that the most are talking about or the most are believing is true, and instead talk about the side of it that feels best to you. In other words, which feels best to you? The world is disintegrating into something that will eventually be unpleasant for everyone, or this world always stays in balance and everyone is having their individual experiences.
The second one, absolutely.
Now, there are those that would say, but Abraham, we have statistics that prove that such and such is happening. And we say, all those are results of the way somebody else has been flowing energy. What does that have to do with the way that you flow energy? That's like saying, this thing that I do not want is true. And the reason it is true is because other people held it in their vibration and then attracted it to them so that we could collect the statistics. And because they've done that, now I'm going to attract it to me too so that I can become part of the statistic. And we say, that makes no sense at all. That's like saying, that person over there is eating something that I would never eat, and because he's eating it, I think I should too. It is that ridiculous, you see. So the reason that most people do not have much success with any sort of diet is because a diet is an action. A diet is what I'm going to do or what I'm going to not do.
Right.
I'm going to move my body more, I'm going to eat less of this, or I'm going to eat more of that. It's all about action. And action is fine if it comes on the heels of energy alignment. But when you take action instead of energy alignment, then the results are always short-lived, you see. Yes. Where if you take the time to get energy alignment, then there's such a broad base or breadth of choices in terms of action once alignment takes place first. So we have some personal questions for you.
Okay.
And we're going to state them as if we are speaking them from you. It will be easier for you to hear. And since it is what we want all of you to begin doing, we'll speak it in that way. I am happy with my body. I am unhappy with my body.
I'm happy with my body.
We really want you to hear that. I am happy with my body. I am unhappy with my body. Really big, because we're not asking you what is true. We're asking you which of those two statements feels the best. Doesn't it feel better to mean it? I'm happy with my body. But then you say, but Abraham, if I'm not happy with my body, is it right to say I'm happy with my body? Isn't that untruthful? Am I not in a state of denial?
It doesn't matter.
None of that matters.
No.
So now let's make it a little less personal. Let's say someone else is talking to you. Which feels better? You look great. You look tired.
You look great.
Which would you rather hear? You look great. Mm-hmm. And so what we're suggesting is that you begin practicing those things that feel the best, because what's going on in your head is predominantly what's causing your vibration. And everything that is then happening to you is as a result of that vibration. So doesn't it make sense to do anything and everything that you can do in order to hold yourself in a vibration that allows the well-being that is natural to you to come?
Yes.
There have been so many who have wanted to control your behavior. And they have learned that they can control your behavior by pointing out all of the things that go wrong. In other words, the biggest trick in the book is to point out what isn't working and then offer the solution. And what happens with so many people is that they get stuck in the what isn't working, so they hold off the solution. And what we're saying to you is you can take a shortcut every time by no longer inflaming what's wrong. Don't fuss about what isn't going right. Don't fuss about what you don't want. Just fuss about what's going well. Get weird about it. Talk about what's going well until almost all of your friends have left you because they can't stand the sound of it. In other words, we would just love to hear you say, all of my friends have gone someplace else because they can't stand to hear me gushing over the well-being of my life one more minute.
Yes.
Find something that feels good and just milk it. Talk about it. Explain it. Describe it. Dream about it. Write it in emails. Write an email to everyone you know telling them about something funny that happened or something wonderful that happened or something that you saw. Point out every beautiful thing in the sky, every little cloud, every little streamer, every little something, every flower. Point out the beasts that are doing something clever or the children that are doing something clever. In other words, find things that please you and amplify them, escalate them in your experience. And you'll get so good at escalating the things that are easy to escalate that before you know it, you'll begin to escalate things about your own physical body, about your own physical health, about your own physical diet. You'll begin to escalate the things that feel good until it will begin to feel the way you feel. You will just begin to feel the way. You'll feel hardy. You'll feel sure. You'll feel confident. You'll feel good. You'll feel attractive. You'll feel like you want to feel. And once you do that, everything about your experience reflects that. You'll find your behavior may be changing, but we don't want you to make this about behavior. We want you to make this about how you feel and let the behavior just be a byproduct of how you feel.
Okay.
If you are wondering and wanting some proof about this, just go out in the next couple of days and watch the behavior of people and show yourself that you can tell by their behavior how they feel. You can tell every time. Everyone is a raging example of how they feel. It shows up in everything about them. It shows up in the way they make eye contact with you. It shows up in the way they move their body. It shows up in the clarity of their mind. It shows up in how they eat. It shows up in how they drive. Everything about everybody is just a reflection of how they really feel. And so many people are saying, well, then don't we need to change the conditions so they can feel different? And we say, it doesn't work that way. It can work that way if you've got some mentor that is just determined to stay actively involved with your positive aspects. But our friend who does that for a living said to us, they even got the best of her. They got so depressed that she got depressed, you see. And so we say, work it from the inside out. Just decide that nothing is more important than that I feel good.